Coming up on Arirang News, President Moon Jae-in presents his administration's budget proposal for next year, worth almost $500 billion, aimed at stopping COVID-19 and supporting the economy as it recovers. The South Korean government resumes a program giving people discounts on travel, accommodations, and dining out to encourage consumption and help the economy. Millions of coupons to be given out in the coming months. And Finance Minister Hong Nam-ki announces new real estate policies that'll help get first-time buyers into their own homes. And for expensive homes, raise taxes so that prices come down. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. President Moon gave a speech to the National Assembly today presenting his administration's proposed budget for next year and calling on lawmakers to pass it. He highlighted the measures in it to stop COVID-19 and to support the economy's recovery in the pandemic. Our Blue House correspondent Hong Yoo has the details.
A country strong in crisis is how President Moon Jae-in described South Korea during his 2021 budget speech. He said South Korea was able to show the world how the country is advanced in terms of disease prevention by successfully containing COVID-19 and becoming a role model for the world. Global credit rating agencies are projecting South Korea to see better economic growth for next year than most countries around the globe. To make that projection a reality, the proposed budget calls for just under $500 billion of spending, an on-year increase of 8.5%.
이제 내년부터 우리 경제를 정상적인 성장 궤도로 올려놓기 위해 본격적인 경제 활력 조치를 가동할 때입니다.
The Korean New Deal is the core of this budget proposal as the country has increased investment to expand employment and the social safety net, as well as create new growth engines. The government will provide an employment maintenance fund to protect 460,000 jobs and to create 570,000 private and more than 1 million public jobs. More than $7 billion will be invested in the Digital New Deal to foster non-contact industries, such as establishing a data dam to collect, manufacture, and use data. Another $7 billion will go into the Green New Deal as the government plans to replace coal power with renewable energy. These new developments will be spread nationwide to promote balanced regional growth. President Moon expects the Korean New Deal project to lead to innovation in people's lives after COVID-19 and asks the National Assembly to support this proposal by actively sharing their ideas about it. The government also plans to inject $3.5 billion to nurture the growing industries related to system semiconductors, new types of automobiles, and biohealth. The budget also allocates more than $46 billion for defense, but in his speech, the president reiterated the need for dialogue with North Korea. Referring to peace as a common road for South and North Korea, the president said he hopes the two can find a way to coexist and that he will continue to seek for dialogue for the peace and denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Hong Yoo, Arirang News.
South Korea's trade minister is one of two candidates vying to become the new Director General of the World Trade Organization, and a report says the U.S. is supporting her bid. According to Politico, the State Department has sent a cable directing diplomats to gauge whether their host countries support South Korean Trade Minister Yoo Myung-hee. And if they haven't yet made a commitment, it says then the diplomats should gently nudge them to back Minister Yoo. She and the candidate from Nigeria, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, are now waiting for the results of the vote, which are expected in the coming hours. On Wednesday, Seoul's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Jong-gun spoke on the phone with his American counterpart, Stephen Biegun, and discussed the WTO race as well as bilateral cooperation. South Korea's consumer sentiment in October has risen by the most in more than 11 years, largely due to the easing of social distancing measures. To help consumption recover even more, the government's giving out discount coupons again, which it had stopped doing because of a resurgence of the virus. There are coupons already for concerts, art exhibitions, movies, and sports. And starting today, there'll be discounts on travel, lodging, and food. Ji-young has the details.
Following the easing of social distancing measures, South Korea's consumer sentiment in October soared, recording its biggest increase since 2009. According to the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, the composite consumer sentiment index stood at 91.6, up 12.2 points from the month earlier. The central bank attributed the rise to resumption in spending and the pent-up demand mainly in travel, dining out, and entertainment. To further boost spending, the South Korean government is giving out discount coupons in lodging, travel, and dining out, resuming the scheme that was put on hold due to the surge in infections in August.
From today, discount coupons on lodging, travel, and food services that were on hold will be released with discretion and thorough prevention measures.
Starting Wednesday, the government is running a program supporting workers who visit local destinations. Companies must apply for the program, and if they're selected for the scheme, then employees who spend 200,000 won, about $180 on a trip, will receive an extra 200,000 won, which is provided by the employer and the government. And from Friday, more than 1,100 travel package vouchers will be given out to people booking online. The coupons offer discounts of 30% or up to around $50 for trips at designated local destinations. From next Wednesday, the government will release discount coupons of between 30,000 and 40,000 won, or $27 to $35 for accommodation booked online. And to boost consumer spending in general, South Korea's biggest annual shopping event, the 15-day Korea Sale Festa, will kick off on Sunday, where there will be discounts online and offline on a range of products. 엄지영, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, thanks for making time today.
Happy to be here.
Well, stocks on Wall Street were down overnight, with the exception of the Nasdaq. The spread of COVID-19 around the world accelerating, and it doesn't look like there'll be a stimulus deal by next Tuesday, Election Day. The Dow off by 0.8%. What's the story in the global markets?
Okay, well, as you said, the American market had a sort of a mixed result. The Dow and S&P fell, but Nasdaq actually went up. This represents, I think, sort of the difference between the tech stocks and the rest. The tech stocks are heading for a fairly good rise in the last few days, but the other stocks are not really doing well. So that accounts for why the tech-heavy stocks, tech-heavy Nasdaq rose, while the other major indices fell. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that the economy, while the COVID is rising, the economy does seem to be heading towards some sort of a recovery. The factory orders have been up for fifth straight month, and the sentiment is generally optimistic. So again, the COVID incidence is rising. So the market does seem to be reflecting some uncertainties dealing with the upcoming elections, as well as perhaps a slight worry that if the economy is too good, then the Fed will tighten up a little bit. They did commit to a long-term loose monetary policy, but if the economy keeps on going well, then the Fed may tighten up, which may have a negative effect on the stock market. But there are some certain political uncertainties in the U.S. market. For example, the latest polls seem to show that while Vice President Biden is still firmly in the lead, President Trump is catching up. And recent reports by Moody's and Oxford Economics did show that Biden, if he's elected, the economy and the stock market will probably be better. And then there was the new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Barrett, who was put in the Supreme Court. She is probably going to start this week, and that also perhaps tilts the election toward President Trump a little bit. Not enough to overcome the lead, but still enough to make things uncertain. So it may be that the U.S. stock markets are reflecting some of this uncertainty. They went from almost sure win for Biden to perhaps Trump having a better chance of winning. So again, they're getting to be more uncertainty in the market. European markets are all down. The European countries are heading toward a major shutdown and lockdown if this trend continues. So that probably explains why the European stocks are not doing so well. The Asian stocks have been mixed. Shanghai slightly in the positive. Hong Kong and Nikkei slightly in the negative. Again, that probably reflects the uncertainties that we see in the U.S. markets. The Kospi and the Kosdaq market, they actually went up today. So I guess happy news for Korean stock investors.
Yeah, as you say, the Kosdaq it seemed to continue to recover from its big sell-off on Monday. According to the Korea Exchange, though, average daily volume on the two main indices is down this month by about a fourth compared to last month. Tell us about the local market and why volume might be down.
Okay, well, this market has been supported in a lot of ways by individual stock investors, what we call Eastern ants, 동학개미, and they've stopped buying in such volume for the last few weeks. This, I think, has multiple reasons. First of all, these individual investors may be profit-taking. They've been selling off rather than buying stocks in the last few days or so. So they are probably profit-taking. And then the uncertainty in the U.S. elections, as well as the disappointment in the stimulus payment, probably carries over to the Korean market as well. And then the one specific incident, the government has announced that they're considering reclassifying who is a major stockholder in companies. Now, the previous threshold for being a major stockholder was that you had more than 1 billion won's worth of stocks, but the latest government proposal wants to bring the threshold down to 300 million won. Why is this important? Because if you're considered a major stockholder, then you have to pay more taxes. So there has been a lot of complaint over whether this rule is going to be good for the individual investors, and there has been a lot of anger by individual investors because, well, some of them have become de facto major stockholders if the threshold goes down. So the fear of increased taxes, as well as anger against the government and the Democratic Party who proposed the rule, may be playing a part in reducing individual investors.
Well, Professor, we're almost out of time, but we've got this consumer sentiment improving this month by a large margin. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, it seems that September is the unusual month rather than October being unusually optimistic. If you look at the August numbers, August number was 88.2, October number was 91.6. It looks impressive because, well, in September, the number fell down by so much. It fell from 88 to 79.4. September was an unusually pessimistic month, probably because people thought that the coronavirus was coming back. But we seem to have gotten over it with less problems than we expected back in late August or early September. So I think people are feeling perhaps unusually optimistic. As you pointed out in the last story, it's really impressive that the item, when we look at possible future consumption purchases, the item which went up the most was travel, leisure travel. So I think Koreans are perhaps looking forward to the day when the coronavirus is over and they can go either domestic or foreign travel that they wanted so much but they couldn't have this year.
I think most of us can agree with that, Professor. Thanks so much for spending your time with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
South Korea's finance ministry has announced new measures to cool down the country's overheated real estate market and help first-time buyers get their first homes. Apartments built by the government will have smaller down payments. And for expensive homes, property taxes are likely going up, which will help bring prices down. Kim Jae-hee reports.
The government has laid out its latest plan to help young people, particularly newly married couples, get onto the property ladder. Under the government's new plan, first-time buyers will be able to buy new government-built properties with a smaller initial deposit. This is according to South Korea's Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi Wednesday as he spoke at a ministerial meeting related to the real estate market. Under the government's new plan, buyers can pay an initial deposit of just 20 to 25% of the property's value and pay off the rest over time. The buyers can divide repayments into 10 to 15% chunks every 4 years, so they will eventually own the property outright within 20 to 30 years. Until they fully own the property, they will have to pay rent, but this will be set below the market rate. The government plans to gradually apply this new measure to new housing sites from 2023.
We believe the new plan will mitigate the initial burden on ordinary people who dream of buying a house but lack the financial means to do so.
The minister also said the government is looking to change the way it assesses the value of real estate for taxation, so it better reflects the market price. It currently assesses homes at 69% of their market value, but under the plan, by 2030, the government will assess them at between 80 and 100% of their value. However, the government intends to introduce new policies to prevent this change in property tax valuations from adversely affecting people who own a single low or mid-priced home. The minister said that the government will announce these measures in the coming days after consulting with the ruling Democratic Party. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.